It was a cold December evening in Chicago, the kind where the wind doesn't just blow, it slices right through your jacket, biting your skin, and whispering reminders of everything you've lost. Michael knew this kind of cold well, but this year, it wasn't just the weather that chilled him. Just a week before Christmas, he lost his job. The place where he spent 8 years of his life, the place where he thought he was building something steady, was gone. One day he was there, and the next, he was walking out with a box of his things and an uncertain future. Before everything fell apart, Michael had dreams like anyone else. He imagined a future where his hard work paid off. A small apartment filled with laughter. Maybe even a family of his own someday. He pictured weekends spent exploring the city, the smell of fresh coffee, and a life that felt steady and full of promise. But those dreams, like fragile glass, shattered the day he walked out of his old job, leaving behind not just an office, but the hope he'd carried for years. The mornings after that felt the hardest. The sun would rise over Chicago's skyline, but inside Michael's small apartment, darkness lingered. Some days he stayed in bed, the weight of disappointment pressing on his chest like an unrelenting storm. Other days, he forced himself to dress and step outside. But even the bustling streets seemed to ignore him, the crowd moving past like he was invisible. He thought often about calling his friends, but shame held him back. How do you explain to people you once stood beside that you're now lost, broken, barely holding on? Calls went unanswered or weren't returned. The world he thought cared suddenly felt cold and distant, a reflection of the winter that gripped the city. Michael's days became a cycle of quiet despair and cautious hope. He scoured job listings online, sent out resumes, and went to interviews, but the rejections piled up like the snow on his windowsill. Each no chipped away at his confidence, and some nights he wondered if he'd ever find his way back. Mrs. Carter, though, was different. She never asked for anything. She never made him feel less than. Mrs. Carter was the kind of person who understood what loneliness really felt like. She had lived alone for years after her husband passed, and though she rarely spoke much, her eyes told stories of quiet endurance. She noticed the porch light was off and the door barely opened. So, without saying a word, she began leaving small bags of groceries on his doorstep. Bread, eggs, a tin of soup. Simple things, but enough to remind Michael that he wasn't invisible. Michael never said much about it. Sometimes he just nodded from the window or picked up the bag silently and went back inside. There were no thank you, no promises. Just a quiet understanding between two people who knew what it meant to feel forgotten. Those small acts were lifelines in the dark. They reminded him that kindness doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers in the quiet moments, in the spaces where no one else is looking. Michael often found himself reflecting on what it means to be truly alone. Is loneliness about being physically by yourself? Or is it about feeling unseen, unheard, and forgotten even when surrounded by people? For him, the silence was deafening. He was surrounded by faces but felt utterly isolated, like a ghost drifting through his own life. Some evenings, he imagined what Mrs. Carter's life must have been like. Years ago, when her house was full of laughter and warmth. Now the silence must be unbearable for her too. Perhaps that was why she reached out. Not because she wanted something from him, but because she understood in a way only those who have been lonely can. The cold deepened, and so did Michael's struggles. Yet, amidst the hardship, the small comforts began to anchor him. The morning light filtering through frost-covered windows, the way steam curled from a hot cup of coffee, the soft ticking of a clock marking the passage of time, reminding him that nothing stays still forever. One evening, as the first Christmas lights flickered in the neighborhood, Michael found himself standing on his porch, gripping one of the grocery bags tightly. For the first time in months, he felt a spark of something, gratitude, maybe hope, and he wondered if he could ever repay the kindness shown to him. Eventually, Michael got a call about a new job. It wasn't glamorous and it paid less, but it was a start. Hope stirred again, fragile but real. With each paycheck, the weight lifted slowly, like the first warm rays of spring melting winter's hold. With newfound determination, he decided to visit Mrs. Carter to thank her properly, to tell her what she meant. He walked across the snow-crusted sidewalks, rehearsing his words. But when he knocked on her door, it wasn't her who answered. Instead, her son stood there, his face drawn and sad. "Mrs. Carter passed away a few days ago," the man said quietly. Michael's heart sank. He stood frozen on the doorstep, the cold suddenly unbearable. All the time she had cared for him silently, all the gratitude he had kept locked inside, rushed in a painful flood. He realized he had never once told her thank you. In that moment, Michael understood a truth that is hard to face. We never know when it will be the last time to appreciate someone's kindness. Life doesn't always give us a second chance. So if you have that one person who still checks on you when the world forgets, Tell them what they mean to you. Don't wait for the perfect moment, because sometimes the perfect moment never comes. What if Michael had told Mrs. Carter how much she mattered? How might their story have changed? And what about you? Is there someone you've been meaning to thank or hold close before it's too late? Kindness is a quiet power. It doesn't demand attention or applause, but its impact can last far beyond the moments we see. Michael's story is a reminder that even in our darkest times, a single act of kindness can be a lifeline. But kindness is a two-way street. It asks us to notice, to appreciate, to say thank you while there's still time.